So collaboration, as some of you know, has anchored my experience and my career in journalism. Before working at the Pulitzer Center, I worked for 15 years at the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, where my job was to persuade journalists all over the world to stop being lone wolves and instead work together and share radically for the sake of the story and for the sake of the audience. So collaboration has allowed me to do things that I never really thought were possible. And speaking of impossible ventures, I would like to start with an example and with an anecdote from a different discipline that Mattia has heard me talk about before. On April 10, 2019, if you may remember, astronomers at the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics declared at a press conference, "We have seen what we thought was unseeable." They were referring to the first ever photograph of a black hole, something that until that point had been considered impossible because to accomplish that, scientists would have needed a telescope the size of the Earth. So instead, 200 scientists, yes, 200 scientists, joined forces and created a network of synchronized radio telescopes that were set to focus on the same object at the same time, acting as a giant virtual telescope. The more telescopes working together, the sharper the image. The more telescopes working together, the sharper the image. As the New York Times put it at the time, the scientists had to adjust the telescopes to work together. They had to get the timing right. They had to hope that the weather would cooperate in multiple places at the same time. And they also had to hope that nothing broke. It sounded crazy, but it worked. Now, let's think about journalism and how that kind of cooperation and ingenuity, grounded in trust and a bit of crazy, has allowed us to overcome our limitations, break new ground, and tackle the stories that we thought would be impossible to do. In 2016, the Panama Papers taught us two things. First, that radical, universal collaboration among journalists was possible on a global scale. And it also taught us that these entrenched and damaging systems, like the offshore tax avoidance systems, that we could move the needle, that journalistic collaboration could spark the kind of change that system of inequity had not seen in more than 100 years. So going back to the analogy of the black hole, we can say that AI in some ways is also a black hole. And it is a black box, an ever-evolving and complex subject that crosses borders and that demands this kind of radical collaboration. Karen Howe, a person I admire, a journalist and a pioneer in the AI field, in the journalism AI field, remind us that AI is digital infrastructure, like the internet. And that means that as such, it is invisible. She says that it will require a lot of ingenuity, trust, and cooperation for us to really see, understand, and use AI in ways that can change our communities and can change journalism for the better in a profound way. We are fortunate to have many Karen Howes and organizations and initiatives like JournalismAI around the world that are already doing this work and that are signaling the way forward. At the Pulitzer Center, we have been doing a lot of community listening with the journalists that we served around the world. We asked them what they need to be able to effectively report on AI and with AI in their communities. And they told us what you've been hearing at the festival, right? Like these needs that we all have. They told us that they needed more AI literacy. They needed to understand better basic concepts of AI so they can be more confident when using the technology, when approaching it, when introducing it to the newsroom. They needed access to data. How can they access the data that can help them interrogate the algorithms that are being deployed in their communities? They told us that they had concerns about legal pushback from the AI industry. But one message that came really strong and that was very consistent from all over the world was that these journalists needed a community of peers and a community of mentors that would help them collaborate across newsrooms, across borders, across disciplines, and work together. So in early 2022, we created the AI Accountability Network, an initiative that has basically two main focus or goals. One is to bring journalists together to create the conditions for that kind of cross-discipline and cross-border reporting on AI and with AI. And then also to expand, the other goal, to expand and diversify, something that Itika was talking about, bringing more voices from the Global South together. We seek to change the narrative and to challenge the narrative, just like Journalism AI, as to who gets to be an AI journalist. We are convinced that AI in journalism and also more broadly should inherently be a collaborative enterprise. And if you think about it, a lot of what is not right in the AI field these days is because collaboration has been an afterthought. Every time collaboration has been an afterthought, then we face the same problems. It is no secret that groups and communities most impacted by AI technologies are usually the least likely to be consulted as these technologies are being designed and as these technologies are being deployed in their communities. So recapping a little bit and thinking about our own field, as we design journalistic projects that investigates the uses of AI in our society, and as we ourselves use machine learning to solve journalistic problems, we can think of three key levels of cooperation. The cross-discipline collaboration that will give us that diverse set of skills, knowledge, and backgrounds that is so crucial to tackle these complex stories. The cross-border collaboration that will allow us to follow the money and to also follow the data trails from Shanghai to Silicon Valley to India to Brazil and more. And last but not least, the collaboration with the impacted communities. How might we center their voices as we report about how these technologies impact and change their daily lives? Before I close, I don't have a lot of time. I want to finish with an example of collaboration that has been really inspiring for me to see and to witness closely. Please meet Joseph, a journalist from Venezuela, Manuela, and Yuri, journalists from Brazil. These three journalists had never before worked with machine learning. They are shoe leather reporters, they are investigative reporters, and they did not, they had no connection before with the world of AI. They are members of the Pulitzer Center's Rainforest Investigations Network. So they collaborate on stories that uncover the forces that are destroying our tropical rainforests around the world. Manuela, Joseph, and Yuri investigate the infrastructure that enables criminals to deforest on an industrial scale. Within that picture, illegal airstrips are a key part of that infrastructure. Everyone knows they exist, the three journalists know they exist, and that they play a key role in fueling the criminal activity. But nobody really knew the true scope of the problem. So how do you find hidden illegal airstrips in the vast Amazon rainforest? This was the question that they were trying to solve in their journalism. As you can imagine, this was one of these kind of like impossible stories that we were talking about before. Why? Because of the intricate and impenetrable geography of the Amazon rainforest, but also because of the dangers involved in even trying to go there and document things in place. So this was also a huge opportunity for collaboration and for machine learning to make a difference. And they went for it. Yuri, Manuela, and Joseph approached data scientists from Earthrise Media, which is a nonprofit that helps journalists with geoscience. And together they devised an innovative approach. They designed an algorithm that can spot features of runways in satellite imagery. The technique consists of manually selecting information from historical satellite imagery, what you are seeing here, and then using this baseline for programs to find similar patterns in recent images. The AI program that these journalists and scientists worked together on found 1,269 airstrips, more airstrips than the number that had been registered officially in Brazil. So these were the illegal or unregistered airstrips used by criminal groups. The reporters then manually reviewed the results and provided feedback to the data scientists. But their cooperation didn't stop there. Yuri at the time was working for The Intercept Brazil, and Manuela was working for the New York Times. And anybody who knows something about journalism understands that The Intercept and the New York Times, they have had their differences over time. It is not two organizations that work together every day. But the reporters make the case to their editors that because they had collaborated so intensely during the research and the reporting phase, that this story needed to be a collaborative project for these two media organizations, and that they needed to publish it simultaneously, giving each other credit. It was a long process, but long story short. The resulting story was featured on the front page of the New York Times and was one of the top investigations published by The Intercept Brazil in 2022. They generated, both stories, enormous impact, both in Brazil and outside the country. It was also published in Venezuela by Armando Info and in El País in Spain. Their estimates of illegal airstrips and the links to environmental crimes were reported by many other outlets and became part of the political debate during the recent elections in Brazil. All the data and code are public and are available to scientists, to advocates, to governments, to you, to anybody who wants to consult that information in a platform that has been created, and it's called AmazonMiningWatch.org. So this collaboration is live, is ongoing, and is public. We believe that we not only collaborate intensely during the reporting process, the research process, the publication process, and then the aftermath as well, radically sharing our methods, our methodologies, our code, and our data so others can take what we've done and build on it. What is going on in the field of AI in journalism reminds me of those scientists that we were talking about before, coordinating their telescopes from different corners of the earth to finally see what until then had been unseeable. Remember, the more telescopes involved, the sharper the image of the black hole, as long as there was disciplined coordination, trust, and yes, a little bit of luck. So when in doubt about whether to cooperate or not, we can ask ourselves, will this story or this use of machine learning in the newsroom be more compelling, more impactful, fairer, or more accurate if other voices, perspectives, skills, backgrounds are included? And then the key question, look around the table. Who needs to be included? What voices are missing? And how can we ensure that those voices, that those perspectives are part of the conversation? I am counting on this growing community of journalism AI and its ingenuity and its courage to give a sharper image, as Matthias said before, of the perils and the opportunities of AI technologies in the newsroom, as well as bolder ideas of how we might create a more equitable, inclusive, and sustainable field of journalist reporting on AI and with AI in the public interest. Here's hoping that we continue to reach for the impossible and the unseeable with new tools, new determination, and more collaboration. Thank you so much.